And now, Kim, it's yours. The stage is yours. Oh no, I'm actually on the stage. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, everybody. I hope everybody made it to the space, because that way you will be able to easily discover this room, which you can also join by typing this room alias, but I guess using the space is a bit easier. And yeah, so welcome to this talk about the NeoBoard. And before I begin, I would like to ask you, has anybody heard about the NeoBoard? 1, 2, couple, 3, 4, perfect, 5. Who has heard and is using perhaps widgets in Matrix, in Element? Yeah, a couple more people. Anybody using widgets that aren't call widgets? Okay. So, yes, before I get started, I just mentioned please do join this room and get out your laptops to do so, because right now it's only possible to use this widget properly using the Element web or desktop clients. And yes, if you do join the room, you should be able to immediately see this NeoBoard widget, and you can follow on your own screens and perhaps interact later on. And while you do that, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Kim Brose. I am currently a software engineer employed at Nordic. And personally, I've been interested and hosting Matrix myself since early 2017. I'm interested in lots of things, especially receiving notifications, connecting stuff with bots and things like that. So if you're interested in that as well, talk to me. You can find me on GitHub, and you can write at me using this Matrix ID for anything that concerns the Nordic side of things, the widget, and so on. We also have a public room to discuss this, which, yeah, we'll come back to that later. So you might have already noticed what's new at Nordic. We are here with a couple people, so you recognize some of them by these nice Nordic shirts, if you have any questions about these. Nordic is a German company, a Hamburg-based company that develops things based on Matrix, and especially so far our focus has been on widget development. If you have been to the first edition of the Matrix Community Summit, then you might have experienced Hato's talk last year about Matrix Element and widgets in the sovereign workplace for the German public sector. You might ask yourself, what's the sovereign workplace? That's a project that intends to create like a suite of really tightly connected different apps that fulfill the use cases of something like Microsoft Teams, and it's supposed to be or to become an open source and sovereign replacement for these kinds of US cloud-based suites such as MS Teams, just using open source software, and particularly those people funding these projects are, in the case of the sovereign workplace, which has now in the meantime been renamed to OpenDesk, is the Ministry for Inners. I'm not sure what's the correct German translation. The Bundesministerium für das Innere. Interior. Ministry for the Interior, German ministry. And so what they find very important is to have this digital sovereignty, being able to host their own applications. By the way, if you're interested in the rest of this suite, we have these flyers, and of course find us to talk about it later. We also have some stickers. Yeah, what happened since last year? Hato presented a couple of these widgets, and in the meantime, we managed to deliver and open source I think all the widgets that were presented here on this stage last year, they are licensed under Apache 2.0. And the other thing, while there was already some concept around having a whiteboard widget at that point as well, we also did a complete rewrite of this whiteboard using WebRTC to enable it for actual, real, instant, real-time communication. Yeah, some other things that have happened in the meantime as well is we have extended the widget API both by the spec and also the implementation that Element has with some features to enable, which we will see later on. We also extended the Element plugin system, the Element web plugin system, so we can include some custom functionality. And right now, one of the things we are working on is implementing knocking an element, which enables you to have some kind of a lobby. You can ask to join a room. Whoop, where's my cursor? There it is. Now, what's the NeoBoard? Apparently, only a few of you have already heard about it. In its core, it's a whiteboard, and it tends to be an alternative to some of these commercial tools out there. For example, you might have used a tool such as Miro. And like I said, it's part of this Open Desk application suite, which is to be used by the Ministry of the Interior in Germany. Importantly, I called it Matrix Native here. It's supposed to integrate with all of the components are supposed to integrate, but especially this whiteboard is supposed to fit into this real-time communication use case, which is why it is integrated into Matrix and the Element client. And I can show you this, or well, you can see this on yourself if you're following it on your own screens. This is embedded inside of a window, inside of an Element client. This brings me to the topic to quickly summarize what's a widget. Widgets are web apps that can be embedded inside the Matrix client like this. And it enables the Messenger client to be extended for some special use cases. For example, we have heard from Timo about the Element call technically being a widget if you integrate it into the Element web client. And there are some more use cases. Having a whiteboard is one of them. Well, I said they are web apps that are integrated inside of the same tab in your browser, basically. But it goes a bit beyond that. That makes it a widget instead of just a simple embedded frame. And that is, it can also connect and talk to the actual client that does embed it, which is, for example, how we can use Matrix to store the data that is contained in the NeoBoard. All this text is somehow encoded and stored in the room. We can use some other features, like, for example, if you look at the top right here, you can see all your faces who have joined me on in this widget. And yeah, that's all possible thanks to the widget API, which is able to fetch this information through the client from the Matrix server. It can reuse your accounts and all the nice features that come along with it. It can use the room, it can use all the permissions level, and so on. Now, it's important to point out that this is not a drawing tool for art or something. It's a working tool that's supposed to be used for things like brainstorming, drawing mind maps, creating concepts, and, well, perhaps giving presentations such as this one. Where's my notes? Yes, I just touched on this very, very slightly. Let me go back into full screen mode. I want to tell you a bit about this architecture. So you can see here we have this different levels of blue, and on the outside we have the browser. In the browser runs the Element Messenger. In there is an iframe. In the iframe runs this widget web app, and then we can see the widget API, which enables the app running inside of the iframe to talk to the Element Messenger. and they can exchange information that's already present in the element messenger. But if something perhaps isn't already synced, then it can also ask the element messenger for the data anyway, and then element will go and using the client server API will fetch this information from the home server if needed. Yeah, especially it's very nice because you don't need an extra authentication step. However, something you do get that separates this from your account a bit is a window of permissions. If you have joined, then you might have gotten this pop-up with all the permissions listed, and that might look a bit scary at first, so the UX perhaps can be improved. But actually, while seemingly overwhelming, it's actually pointing out all the things that you allow the widget to do, so in a way that makes it more secure. What can you do with this NeoBoard tool? Yes, compared to other similar tools, whiteboard tools, you might have already noticed that it has fixed-sized slides in a 16:9 aspect ratio. And this makes it easy and fitting for also giving presentations, but is a bit different from how other tools work. Things that you can do is using this toolbar at the bottom. You can draw certain shapes and lines and freehand. You can add text to things as well. You have obviously multiple slides. So there are multiple pages you can draw on, and there's this presentation mode that enables you to go from slide to slide. And very importantly, all of this works collaboratively, and that's what I want you to try out right now. So if you still haven't made it to the room, here's the room ID again. Please join, and I will now enable the editing mode for everyone, and you can play around a bit. But please stick to this slide and perhaps keep the header so everybody can still find the room alias. So yeah, we have this lock and unlock feature. We have the other presentation feature of going back and forth. We can already see some shapes appearing, lots of shapes. We also have this eye up the top here, and this enables us to show all of your cursors. So we can watch who is editing what. Wow, there are certainly a lot of people on here. Very importantly, everything of this is based on Matrix. There's no additional backend, and we can have other nice features such as the end-to-end encryption that just natively ships with Matrix, all the authentication already in Matrix, and yes, this all reused because we use this widget API. And you might notice all the movement, even though there's a lot going on, really. Still, it's shown pretty fluidly. So somehow we managed to make it work in real time. And I don't know if 2 people have already tried to edit the same object, but certainly you have edited the same slide. So clearly this works in a collaborative way. We also have some more features. For example, if I find my own cursor even. Yeah, I can also draw stuff. Here's a triangle. I can undo it, and it won't interfere with whatever you are doing. So I think I'm going to pause it here so we can continue. Thank you for participating. How do we make it work? Like I said, this is all based on Matrix. And if I go back and get to the timeline and I get some enable viewing hidden events, then we can see there are lots of hidden events in here, and I can't read them right now. I'm trying to grab a NeoBoard event. Wow. Perhaps it's this one. Yes, you can see these are all hidden events. And events in Matrix, if you are not too familiar with the technical side, events are just JSON objects. They have, most importantly, a type. They have a sender associated with them, and they have a body that conveys the information you as the user want to convey. And that could be just a regular text message, and in that case, the body is just whatever you typed in the chat. But we can also use these kinds of custom events, and in them we can store any kind of data we want. For example, we have these chunk events. Maybe I managed to find one. No, maybe not. Can you help me find one? Anyway, maybe you find your own. These chunk events are what actually contain all the data, and if you look at them, you will find that because the whiteboard data uses a binary format, we base64 encode them, so it's possible to store them in JSON and then dump these into these chunk messages. And we send those to the room every 5 to 10 seconds or so with a full snapshot of all the whiteboard, including all the slides, all contents. This isn't exactly real time, you might notice, but we are limited in this way because the Matrix servers, especially the Synapse server, which we use, come with a rate limit. And this rate limit limits us to sending an event every 10 seconds or so. Well, because at some point the NeoBoard grows so large, we need to send multiple events. That limits us quite a bit. And at the same time, we want to stay compatible with more or less the default configuration of the home servers. So yeah, that's a limit right there. So how did we solve this? Let me go back to the full screen presentation. On the next slide, we can see we added 2 layers, one on the top and one at the bottom. And so the first thing we do is we use the local storage in your browser to instantly save anything you do. And that is because if you quit, or maybe you switch the room, maybe you close the tab, maybe your computer is out of battery and shuts off, and it had not been sent into the matrix yet, then the data would be lost. And because we don't want you to lose what you just worked on, we have to save it immediately, and then whenever you come back, it will be merged back into everything that has happened in the meantime, and you can continue working where you left off. And the perhaps more interesting part might be the real-time component. So we solved being able to communicate more or less as fast as we want using a WebRTC connection. And has anyone here worked with WebRTC yet? Right? No, not so many people. Mostly the Element Core guys, right? Yes. Well, so what WebRTC is, in essence, is a browser standard for real-time communication channels, and that allows us to connect everybody's browser to each other and exchange as much data as we want, much similar like a call, you might imagine, but instead of sending your voice and video, we send these NeoBoard update chunks and deltas. And however, what WebRTC doesn't solve is the signaling part, so establishing a connection. And we did, of course, solve this as well. You might imagine how we did it, and perhaps Timo already scratched on that. The signaling layer is not standardized in WebRTC, so, well, of course, we use Matrix. Very much similar to Element Call. This is currently mostly based on this original MSC3401, because right now all this nice nice matrix RTC we have heard about. Or well, at least at the point where we built it, it wasn't available for us to use it yet, so we implemented it in our own way. We use these two device messengers to negotiate. We have all heard about that just in the talk before. We do a full mesh connection, and that works all right because compared to all this voice and video in an actual video conference, it's not that much data. It's just too much data to post as chat messages. And yeah, maybe Matrix RTC at some point becomes available to use as a library, as an abstraction that's basically WebRTC standardized for Matrix. And at that point, maybe it's even possible for us to switch to it. There might be an SDK, and we also gain all their nice features like perhaps SFU support. So we don't even need to use full mesh anymore. The other thing we needed to solve was, of course, how to collaborate on a document. And well, how do you ensure that there are no editing conflicts? Maybe you edit the same thing, the work of someone else might disappear, you override it. There's a lot of potential for conflicts, I guess you can imagine. And so what we use are a smart algorithm. They are called, or smart kind of algorithm called conflict-free replicated data types, or short CRDTs. And those enable different users to edit everything at once from themselves, and then automatically and most importantly deterministically resolve any conflicts that might appear. To explain this, perhaps some of you have used a tool such as Git before to version your software projects, and sometimes two people have edited the same file, you get a merge conflict, and then you have to resolve it manually. And the difference here is now that on one hand this is resolved automatically, but it's also resolved in a way that is deterministic, so regardless what happens, what is edited, everybody who is using this thing and is resolving the conflict, they all get the same end result. So it's of course very important that the state of the whiteboard is consistent for everyone. It looks, the content, everything is the same for everyone, and that is the critical feature here. Yeah, we used YJS as a library to implement this CRDT, or well, it is a CRDT implementation, and we use it to build this whiteboard with it. It can even provide Delta updates, which we use for these real-time, on the real-time layer, on the WebRTC layer. And right now, this implementation is not reusable for anything else. So this is hard-coded in this project right now. But in the future, it might be possible to pull it out and also make it into a Matrix CRDT library if the need arises. So if you're interested in that, yeah, feel free to approach us. Yeah, so for example, the usual use cases might be to create a collaborative editor, and we might also look at these use cases if they arise from our clients. But right now, that's the status. So I've mentioned we have already overcome some big challenges. We have managed to achieve some backbone for this functionality. We are able to save our data inside of the matrix rooms. We have this conflict-free collaboration ability, and everything is communicated in real time thanks to this WebRTC layer on top of the usual matrix timeline event communication. And we had some additional problems that we have solved. So, for example, I think I already mentioned that events have a limited size in Matrix of about 65 kilobytes or so. And when you consider some overhead, like the event has some additional metadata, you might use end-to-end encryption, and all of that, that results in 30 or so kilobytes that are actually usable by us to store our whiteboard data in. And I'll show you on the next slide how we solve this. There's also some more, like, for example, how to even read all the events from the rooms through the widget API, so we have to extend the widget API, or how to efficiently search for these whiteboard contents in an encrypted room specifically, where the server doesn't know what's what. And yes, I will get into that. But also some unsolved issues remain right now, which, for example, is history visibility is one of them. So you might know if you manage a matrix room, then you can set the history visibility. So, for example, you can prohibit people from reading any history that happened before they joined the room or before they got invited and so on. And the issue with that is they wouldn't be able to see what happened or that there is even a whiteboard in the room. Like I mentioned, there's this rate limiting issue. There we can only send about one event or one update per 10 seconds, and the snapshot can have multiple chunks if the whiteboard is big due to this 30 kilobytes limit we have right now. And while so far we could, in theory, control the servers of our customers, we want it to be really nice and compatible for everyone and the default configuration. So we have to deal with the rate limiting. And also, well, if you do enable the invisible events or the hidden events, then you notice there are a lot of them. Of course, every edit more or less results in a bunch of those events. And now if you would be on the go and you load up your mobile matrix client on your phone, and well, everything that happened in the last 2 weeks is people editing on the NeoBoard, but what you want to do is read chat messages, then it needs to read all this history and download all the NeoBoard messages until finally it finds some text messages before that it can actually display to you. So it would be nice to have some filtering abilities for this. So yeah, let me get into these other challenges we were able to solve. If I can find my cursor again, there it is. So this is how we structure our events to store the whiteboard. When you want to, well, the issue is how to make these events available so that a whiteboard can instantly find them and you can read them from the widget very nicely. And one issue is, well, they might be anywhere in the timeline. It's hard to find a specific event if you don't know the exact event ID. And the trick we use for this is, well, we have persistent state events. They are always easy to access. And they are easy to get from the server. You just tell them, well, I need this type, I need this state key perhaps, and you get them returned. And then on the other hand, there are timeline events, and like I said, they can be anywhere in the timeline. You need to have the exact ID to find the right one. And so this trick is to use something called relations. It's a similar mechanism or the same mechanism that is used if you send a reply. Then your reply relates to the original message. And similarly here, what happens is we use on the very top, the green one is the state event. It's always there, and that saves where the whiteboard event is stored in the timeline. It knows its event ID. And then we have the existence of the whiteboard data itself. This is the next event, this whiteboard document create. And each whiteboard has exactly one of those. And then we have the snapshots, which represent the state of the whiteboard at a given time. And each snapshot can have multiple chunks of data associated with it if the data is larger than 30 kilobytes. So if you edit the whiteboard, at first you would need to create, or the create whiteboard event gets created. And then you create the state event, which points to the whiteboard start. Then you write your snapshot, which relates to the whiteboard event. And then you start to write your actual data into these chunks relating to the snapshot. And then if you want to look it up, you do the lookup the other way around, basically from top to bottom. As it turns out, Matrix is a bit designed towards this messaging use case where the most relevant is always the newest stuff in the timeline, but there are ways to work around that if you think about it hard enough. Some other things we solved, like I said, we had to contribute a bit to the widget API, and one of these things was the ability to read these event relations through the widget API in the first place. And so there's this MSC associated with that, which was implemented in, which we implemented in the widget API. And right now, something ongoing is the ability to be able to upload files from the widget API. So you might have noticed that there aren't any images in this presentation. The most we have are emoji right now, and this is due to this limitation. We can't upload images as of yet. This is in progress, and once this passes, we would also be able to add images to this. And this could also be one solution to this issue we have of where to store all this data quickly, because we might be able to upload the actual state and all the whiteboard contents to the media repo instead of having to post all of these chunk events to the timeline, which again, it alleviates the problem of the rate limiting and so on. That would be very helpful. And yes, I hope everybody knows what MSCs are. Perhaps you have seen people with these MSC shirts around. And right now, I think we have also heard in the previous talk already, the widget API is mostly defined by MSCs, so not quite stable yet. And if you want to learn more about this, you can also check out the talk I gave with a colleague at FOSDEM this year. There will be a link to that later. So what is next for the NeoBoard? I already mentioned uploading images would be pretty nice to have. And yes, we have started the work on this. It's currently ongoing. And it would be nice to have some improved rights and role in order to control who can edit what, and perhaps only a few people can edit during a presentation. Right now it's limited to only the one presenting that can block others from editing the whiteboard while it's in presentation mode. And then right now, for example, editing the whiteboard, because it's all certain event types, you can either enable being able to edit the event types or not, but that's not very fine-grained. Of course, it might also be nice to have a standalone mode, similar to element call. You just share a link, so people hop onto the whiteboard, are able to work with it, and yeah, basically some kind of ad hoc solution. And then also, I already kind of mentioned this before, using the content repository for snapshot storage. That's tightly related to being able to upload images. That's the storing the whiteboard as well, instead of posting the chunks. If you play around with this a bit, you might run into the current limits of the formatting options. So it would be nice, while I can do some formatting right now, you might have noticed I haven't used any italics or bold text. So there are some options to improve there as well. Generally, we take care that everything we develop, and frankly, it's a requirement by the customers, because we develop for governmental institutions to have proper accessibility. Right now, the slides of the NeoBoard themselves are not accessible yet. And finally, it would be very nice to have also mobile support, so I don't need to tell you to get out your laptops at the start of a presentation, but you can just use your phones. Finally, of course, we hope real humans use this tool for really nice things. And so we are happy to get some feedback. But before that, I just want to give you all this additional info and links. So I mentioned in the beginning, I work at a company called Nordic. We developed this software and we developed some more widgets. Please approach us if you're interested. You can find most of them on github.com/Nordic, in particular the matrix/NeoBoard. If you read the README of that, then you will find there is even a demo deployment, or of course you can always self-host it if you like. You can use it for yourself in your own rooms. And inside of that repository, you will also find our architecture documents, architecture decision records. In the docs folder, you can learn more about how all these events interact with each other, how we overcame these challenges to be able to store whiteboard data and get it for some use case of this kind. There's also the aforementioned FOSDEM talk. You can find it in the FOSDEM video archive. And finally, if you are interested to join Nordic, then you can have a look at our website for any open job positions, of course. And now finally, it's time for feedback. Of course, I'm open to questions. You may also use this feedback slide. I will enable editing for you and have fun. And yes, that's it. Okay. Do I have a microservice?
Yes, you will get one.
Thank you.
Who was first? Yeah. Let's start you this.
Just a very quick question. I was curious what the add widget command was to quickly add it to any room. Or is it even hosted in a way so I can just add it to any room, like the NeoBoard?
The demo deployment you can add to any room if you like using this add widget command. And then basically it won't do the complete setup. It just tells it, hey, the widget's there. But the widget will detect that and it will tell you, hey, please press this button so I can fix myself. And after that, you reload the room, you have the whole widget in your room installed, ready to go.
Who else?
Thank you for your talk. I have a question to this m.relates2 thing, because it looks like your data structure is a tree, not a generally directed acyclic graph. So when you merge state, you won't have one event that relates to two parent events. Is that right? But did you understand what I mean?
I guess I did.
It looks like
the widget API. Let me try and go back here. So what happens is first you have only one of these whiteboard events, and then when you edit, you have this snapshot events. They get put in a list of this create event, basically. So the create event knows which of these snapshot is the most current one, and really all the older ones are irrelevant for you because the snapshots are complete. And then again, the snapshots just has saved its data in a fancy way. And there isn't really any DAG merging going on as far as matrix goes, I believe.
I mean, the matrix event graph allows that an event has two parents. Because you receive an event from another home server, for example, and then the next event will reference both older events to say, I noticed both events happened, and this one is newer than both. And this doesn't allow that, right? Do you think it would be an advantage to have this possibility to list several parent events? Would it help with state resolution or conflict resolution for your CRDTs or so?
I'm not entirely sure. It's probably irrelevant because this part gets handled by the CRDT level of things, but I can't be entirely sure at this point.
Okay, thanks.
More questions?
There's one.
Regarding saving everything every time, 5 to 10 seconds, I'm not sure if probably the API can't do that, but maybe having a flow that somebody detects, okay, right now the last person is working on it, or after already closing the widget, we then trigger that to save the current state to the event. So you only save it like, okay, they stop working on it because we are WebRTC, it's replicated all the time. And the second it stops being edited, then it gets saved to the database or to Synapse as an event.
Right. I guess it's in the end a matter of making it work with Matrix itself as well as a backup. So yeah, I'm
Maybe there's a block. I just wanted to ask myself if there's a way to get around this in this way. But
yeah, it's a good proposition on first sight. I'm not sure what exactly the reason is, because I was not involved in that decision in particular. But I guess there's a proper reason that we do it this way. But I guess I'm afraid I can't tell. You might ask in the chat room, and somebody else might be able to answer this who isn't here today.
all right, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Any more questions? Would be time for one. But if there's nothing, then thank you.
Thank you.